Ever crack open one of those technical documents? The ones packed with jargon and equations, and just think, where do I even begin?
I think we've all been there.
Right. It can feel like you need a PhD just to scratch the surface. But that's what we're here for. Today, we're diving into a document all about fluid fuel reactors.
Sounds intriguing already.
It is. We're talking about some seriously outside-the-box thinking from mid-20th century nuclear research. We're talking about unusual reactor designs, the wild material challenges they face trying to make these things work.
And maybe even some early ideas about using this technology for space travel.
You read my mind. Okay, so let's start with the big idea. Fluid fuel reactors. This document lays out some really cool concepts. Instead of those typical solid fuel rods we usually picture in a nuclear reactor, imagine the fuel circulating as a liquid molten salt, or even liquid metal.
Like something out of a science fiction movie.
Kind of, right.
Hmm.
But it's not just about being futuristic. There were some real advantages to this approach that got scientists thinking.
What's captivating about these fluid fuel designs is that they weren't just a novelty. It was a completely different way of thinking about nuclear power at the time. Just imagine fuel constantly circulating, which means you could potentially process it continuously and possibly even squeeze out much higher efficiency.
So it's like a constantly self-cleaning oven, but for nuclear fuel.
That's a great analogy. And the best part is, this wasn't just theoretical. They actually built reactors to test these concepts. Projects like the Homogeneous Reactor Experiment, or HRE, were at the forefront of this research.
The HRE experiments, those were some seriously forward-thinking projects. And speaking of groundbreaking, this document also dives into using thorium in some of these fluid fuel designs.
Ah, thorium. Even back then, it was seen as a potential game changer in the world of nuclear energy.
Absolutely. And there's this one quote in the document that really grabbed my attention. It says, "The first molten salt reactor launched into space will undoubtedly be powered by uranium, not thorium, but eventually." That eventually has me hooked.
Yeah.
What's the story there? Why not thorium from the start?
Well, thorium has a few unique quirks that make it both incredibly promising and a bit tricky to work with, even today.
So it's not as simple as just swapping out uranium for thorium and calling it a day.
Not quite. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. To understand why thorium was so appealing, especially for something like space travel, we need to rewind a bit and talk about its advantages.
Let's do it. Take us back to those early days of nuclear research. What got them so excited about thorium?
Well, one of the biggest factors was abundance. Thorium is significantly more abundant than uranium, which was a major concern back then, especially when global politics played a role in securing fuel sources.
So it was about ensuring a steady supply of fuel for the future. Makes sense.
Exactly. But here's where thorium gets really interesting. It has this incredible potential for breeding more fuel as it operates.
Hold on. Breeding fuel sounds like something out of a science fiction novel.
It might sound futuristic, but it's a real phenomenon. You see, when thorium absorbs a neutron, it undergoes a series of transformations that ultimately produce another fissile isotope, uranium-233, which can then sustain a chain reaction. This means you're essentially creating more fuel as you use it, which is a very attractive feature, especially for long-term applications.
Like, say, a long-duration space mission.
You got it. This characteristic of thorium made it a prime candidate for powering missions to the outer planets and beyond, where refueling is practically impossible.
It's like having a self-replenishing gas tank for a spaceship. But if thorium is so abundant and has this incredible breeding capability, why the hesitation? Why not go all in on thorium from the get-go?
That's a great question, and it highlights how these early researchers were thinking strategically. While they saw thorium's incredible potential, they also acknowledged that uranium-based technology was more mature at the time.
They already had a head start with uranium, so it was the logical first step.
Precisely. Remember those material challenges we touched on earlier? Well, they're even more pronounced with thorium. Designing and building a reactor that can handle thorium's unique properties, especially in the harsh environment of space, requires overcoming some serious engineering hurdles.
So it's not just about finding any material that can withstand the heat and radiation. It's about finding materials that can stand up to molten thorium salts at those temperatures.
You got it. Thorium is a whole different ballgame in terms of material science. It requires materials with exceptional corrosion resistance, high temperature stability, and the ability to withstand intense radiation, all while ensuring the safe and reliable operation of the reactor.
It sounds like those early researchers were really up against it, trying to push the boundaries of material science alongside the complexities of nuclear physics.
It was a monumental challenge, no doubt. But despite those hurdles, they didn't give up on thorium. They recognized its long-term potential and continued to explore ways to harness its power safely and effectively.
It's that spirit of innovation and determination that I find so inspiring when we dig into these historical documents. But it also makes you appreciate how far we've come in terms of material science and engineering since those early days of nuclear research.
Absolutely. The advancements in materials have been nothing short of remarkable. We've developed alloys and ceramics that can withstand conditions that would have seemed unimaginable back then. But even with all our progress, the search for even better, more resilient materials continues.
Because there's always room for improvement, right?
Yes.
Especially when we're talking about something as powerful and potentially transformative as nuclear energy. But let's shift gears for a moment and talk about a different kind of challenge, one that goes beyond the technical aspects of these reactors, the environmental considerations.
It's a crucial aspect of any energy technology, especially nuclear. And it's remarkable to see how those early pioneers were already thinking about the environmental implications of their work.
So they weren't just focused on building bigger and better reactors, they were also thinking about how to do it responsibly.
Precisely. Even back then, they understood that with great power comes great responsibility.
It's a lesson that's just as relevant today as it was back then, don't you think?
Absolutely. If anything, it's even more critical now as we face the urgent need to address climate change and transition to a more sustainable energy future.
And this is where those early explorations into fluid fuel reactors and thorium become particularly intriguing.
Hmm.
But to understand why, we need to take a closer look at the environmental aspects of these designs and how they compare to conventional nuclear power plants.
That's a great point. Let's dive into that. One of the biggest concerns with traditional nuclear power is waste management. Those spent fuel rods, loaded with radioactive byproducts, pose significant storage and disposal challenges. But fluid fuel reactors, with their unique ability to continuously process fuel, offer a potential solution to this long-standing issue.
So it's like we were saying earlier about the self-cleaning oven, but instead of crumbs and grease, it's dealing with radioactive byproducts.
Exactly. Remember how we talked about the fuel constantly circulating in these reactors? That constant movement allows for the continuous removal of fission products, which are the byproducts of nuclear fission that make nuclear waste so hazardous.
So it's like a built-in recycling system, constantly cleaning the fuel as the reactor operates. That's pretty ingenious.
It is. And it's not just about reducing the volume of waste generated, it's also about minimizing the long-term environmental footprint. By removing those highly radioactive fission products, you're essentially reducing the radioactivity of the waste that ultimately needs to be disposed of.
Which makes it safer to handle and store over the long term. That's a win-win in my book. It's encouraging to see that even as they were pushing the boundaries of nuclear technology, they were also thinking about sustainability.
It's a testament to their foresight and their commitment to harnessing this powerful energy source responsibly. Because ultimately, the future of nuclear power isn't just about technological advancements, it's about integrating this technology into our energy infrastructure in a way that minimizes environmental impact.
It's about finding that balance between technological innovation and environmental stewardship. And that's a tightrope walk we're still navigating today as we explore advanced reactor designs like the ones outlined in this fascinating document.
You're absolutely right. And speaking of advanced designs, there's one aspect of fluid fuel reactors that we haven't even touched on yet. Their potential for inherently safer operation compared to traditional reactors.
Now, that's a topic I'm always interested in exploring further. Safety is paramount when dealing with nuclear energy, and if these fluid fuel reactors offer inherent safety advantages, that's definitely worth digging into. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's first unpack what we mean by inherent safety in the context of nuclear reactor design.
That's a great place to start. Inherent safety, in the simplest terms, means designing a reactor that relies on fundamental physical principles to prevent accidents rather than relying solely on external safety systems or human intervention.
So it's like building safety features into the very DNA of the reactor itself.
Exactly. And fluid fuel reactors, by their very nature, possess several characteristics that make them inherently safer than traditional solid-fueled reactors.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's break down those inherent safety features. What makes these fluid fuel reactors so special in that regard?
Let's start with one of the most significant concerns in any nuclear reactor: the possibility of a runaway chain reaction, also known as a nuclear meltdown. In a traditional reactor, if the cooling system fails, the heat generated by the fission process can continue to build up, potentially melting the fuel rods and breaching the reactor core.
It's the nightmare scenario that everyone fears.
Exactly. But in a fluid fuel reactor, the fuel itself acts as a natural safety mechanism. You see, as the temperature of the fuel increases, it expands, which reduces its density. This density reduction inherently slows down the nuclear chain reaction, acting like a built-in braking system.
So it's like the reactor has a natural self-regulating mechanism that prevents it from overheating. That's incredible.
It is, and that's just one example of how fluid fuel reactors incorporate inherent safety features. Another advantage is their ability to operate at lower pressures compared to traditional reactors.
Lower pressure generally means a lower risk of leaks or ruptures. Right.
Exactly. Because fluid fuel reactors operate at or near atmospheric pressure, the risk of a catastrophic pressure-induced failure is significantly reduced. This lower pressure operating environment simplifies the design and reduces the stress on reactor components, further enhancing safety.
So it's not just about preventing meltdowns. It's also about minimizing the risk of other potential accidents. It sounds like they really considered every angle when designing these reactors.
They did, and it's a testament to their commitment to developing a safer and more sustainable form of nuclear power. But it's important to remember that no technology is foolproof, and even inherently safe reactors still require robust safety protocols and regulatory oversight.
Absolutely. There's no room for complacency when it comes to nuclear energy. But it's encouraging to see that those early pioneers were already incorporating advanced safety features into their designs. It speaks to their understanding of the profound responsibility that comes with harnessing the power of the atom. And it's a legacy that continues to inspire and guide us today as we strive to develop even safer and more sustainable nuclear technologies. So we've got these incredible reactors that sound like they're practically future-proof in terms of fuel and have some impressive safety features built right in. But this document keeps hinting at using them in space. I gotta ask, what's the connection? Why were these fluid fuel reactors, especially those using thorium, seen as such a good fit for space exploration?
It all boils down to a few key factors that make them uniquely suited for the challenges of space travel, especially when we're talking about venturing beyond Earth's orbit.
So it's not just about strapping a reactor onto a rocket and hoping for the best.
Not quite. Space is unforgiving. It's a harsh environment that pushes technology to its limits. You've got extreme temperatures, radiation, the vacuum of space. It takes a special kind of reactor to handle those conditions.
And those fluid fuel reactors fit the bill.
They certainly have the potential. Remember how we talked about thorium's incredible energy density?
Right, it's like packing a year's worth of energy into a suitcase.
Exactly. That compactness is crucial for space travel. Every kilogram we launch into space adds complexity and cost to a mission. A thorium-based reactor, with its ability to generate vast amounts of energy from a relatively small amount of fuel, could potentially power a spacecraft for years, even decades, without needing to be refueled.
That sounds like a game changer, especially for long-duration missions to the outer planets and beyond.
It could revolutionize how we explore the solar system. Imagine a spacecraft that can travel for decades, powered by a compact, self-sustaining thorium reactor, exploring the moons of Jupiter or Saturn without needing to return to Earth for refueling. It opens up a whole new realm of possibilities.
It's like having a starship with a warp drive, only this time it's rooted in science, not science fiction.
Exactly. And it's not just about the duration of missions. The power output of a thorium reactor could also enable us to do things in space that are currently impossible.
Like what? Give me an example.
Think about the kind of energy-intensive activities we might want to do in space in the future. Things like mining asteroids for resources or building large-scale structures on the moon or Mars.
Activities that would require a massive amount of power.
Precisely. And a thorium reactor, with its potential for high power output, could provide that energy source. It could become the beating heart of a lunar outpost or even a Martian colony, providing the power needed to sustain human life and support scientific endeavors.
It's mind-boggling when you think about the possibilities. It's like we're on the cusp of a new era of space exploration. And these fluid fuel reactors, especially those using thorium, could be the key to unlocking that future. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We've talked about the potential. But what about the challenges? What's standing in the way of making these thorium-powered space reactors a reality?
Well, as with any ambitious technological endeavor, there are hurdles to overcome. Some of them we've already touched on, like the need for materials that can withstand the extreme conditions inside a thorium reactor.
Right, those material science challenges are even more critical when we're talking about something operating in the harsh environment of space.
Exactly. But there are other challenges as well, such as developing lightweight shielding to protect astronauts from radiation.
Of course, safety is always paramount, especially when we're talking about sending humans into space.
Absolutely. And then there's the issue of launching a nuclear reactor into space, which raises legitimate concerns about safety and environmental impact.
Those are valid concerns. It's not something we can take lightly.
No, it requires careful consideration and a commitment to developing robust safety protocols and mitigation strategies. But despite these challenges, the potential benefits of thorium-powered space reactors are simply too great to ignore.
It's like holding the keys to a whole new frontier, and we're still figuring out how to open the door.
That's a great analogy. And just like with any great exploration, it's going to take time, ingenuity, and a willingness to push the boundaries of what's possible. But the journey, I believe, will be well worth it. Imagine a future where humanity becomes a spacefaring civilization powered by the atom, exploring the cosmos and unlocking its secrets. It's a vision that captures the imagination and inspires us to reach for the stars. And these early explorations into fluid fuel reactors, those groundbreaking concepts laid out in the document we've been discussing, represent some of the first steps on that incredible journey.
It's a powerful reminder that even amidst complex equations and technical jargon, there's a spark of wonder and ambition that drives scientific progress. And sometimes it's those seemingly outlandish ideas that have the potential to reshape our world and propel us towards a brighter future.
Absolutely. And as we continue to delve into the intricacies of these fluid fuel reactors, it's that sense of wonder and possibility that we should keep in mind. Because by understanding the past, we can better navigate the present and chart a course toward a future where the power of the atom helps us unlock the secrets of the universe and address some of humanity's most pressing challenges.
It's incredible to think about those early researchers, envisioning a future where we're not just using nuclear power here on Earth, but also harnessing it to propel us across the cosmos.
It's a testament to their ambition and their belief in the transformative power of this technology.
But as we've been discussing, making that vision a reality requires overcoming some significant hurdles, both technical and societal.
Absolutely. It's a complex equation with no easy answers.
And one of the biggest pieces of that puzzle, it seems, is public perception. Nuclear power, for all its potential, often evokes strong emotions and anxieties.
It's understandable. The history of nuclear technology is intertwined with both triumphs and tragedies, and those events have left an indelible mark on the public consciousness.
The specter of accidents like Chernobyl or Fukushima still looms large in people's minds.
Rightfully so. Those events serve as stark reminders of the immense power we're dealing with and the importance of constant vigilance and safety.
But it also feels like there's a disconnect, a lack of understanding about the advancements that have been made in reactor design and safety protocols since those earlier generations of reactors.
You're right. The nuclear industry faces a significant communication challenge. It needs to do a better job of explaining the science, addressing concerns transparently, and engaging with the public in a way that builds trust and understanding.
Because ultimately, it's not just about the technology itself, it's about how that technology is perceived and accepted by society.
Precisely. Public acceptance is crucial for the future of nuclear power, especially as we explore these more advanced reactor designs like the fluid fuel reactors we've been discussing.
Reactors that, as we've learned, offer potential advantages in terms of safety, sustainability, and even their potential for space exploration.
Exactly. But those advantages mean little if they're not understood and embraced by the communities they're meant to serve.
So how do we bridge that gap? How do we move beyond the fear and misconceptions and foster a more informed and nuanced conversation about nuclear power?
It's a complex challenge, but I believe it starts with education, transparency, and open dialogue. We need to meet people where they are, listen to their concerns, and provide clear, accurate information about the risks and benefits of nuclear technology.
And it's not just about talking at people, it's about listening to their perspectives, acknowledging their anxieties, and working together to find common ground.
Absolutely. It's about building a relationship of trust and mutual respect, because ultimately, the future of nuclear power depends not just on scientists and engineers, but on all of us.
It's a collective decision, and it requires an informed and engaged public.
Precisely. And that's why these deep dives, these explorations into the history and future of nuclear technology are so important. They provide a platform for learning, for questioning, and for fostering a more nuanced understanding of this powerful force that has shaped our world in profound ways.
It's about empowering people with knowledge so they can make informed decisions about the future of energy, both here on Earth and as we venture beyond our planet. And as we've learned from this deep dive into the world of fluid fuel reactors, the future of nuclear technology is anything but predetermined. It's a story that's still being written, and the choices we make today will determine the course of that narrative for generations to come.
It's a future filled with both immense promise and profound responsibility. And it's up to all of us to engage in that conversation, to weigh the risks and rewards, and to chart a course toward a future where the power of the atom is harnessed safely, sustainably, and for the benefit of all humankind.
It's a future worth striving for, and it's a conversation worth having. So until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking knowledge. This is The Deep Dive. Signing off.
Now I'm going to take a moment to reflect on everything we've just explored. Fluid fuel reactors. Yeah, they are futuristic sci-fi super tech, and they're real. And their potential is cosmic. This is a radically advanced approach to nuclear energy compared to our present technology, from molten salts to thorium fuel cycles. These aren't just theoretical ideas. Experiments like the HRE pushed the boundaries decades ago and paved their viability back when people were optimistic about a fission future. One of the many things that makes this exciting is the inherent safety built into these reactors, self-regulating systems, lower pressure environments, and the ability to continuously process fuel. It's not just some pie-in-the-sky dream, but a technology designed to overcome the biggest challenges traditional reactors face. Fewer meltdowns, less waste, and space power systems for deep exploration. Imagine a spacecraft running on a self-replenishing reactor, cruising for decades without needing a pit stop, a requirement to escape the one-planet Fermi filter. But, as with any game-changing tech, it's not all smooth sailing. We've lost a lot of time and great people who started this work. We're still improving materials, the design, and the public's perception. Though we have been making great progress. Chernobyl, Fukushima are hard to forget. And as much as we've advanced, people still have reservations about nuclear energy. When talking about the current technology, fair enough. The thing is, nuclear power is powerful, and with great power comes great responsibility. It's on us, scientists, engineers, and policymakers, to work together, be open to new ways of thinking, and to build the trust needed to bring this miracle technology into the market. If we can get it right, fission power, especially innovations like fluid fuel reactors, could unlock a future that's not just sustainable, but transformative, offering cheap desalination, medical isotopes, depleted lithium, and many more industrial uses. We've come a long way since the days of those early experiments, but the journey's far from over. The road ahead? Full of challenges, sure, but also full of possibilities. And who knows, maybe one day we'll look back and say, this was just the beginning of a new era, for energy, for space, for humanity.
Now I'm going to take a moment to reflect on everything we've just explored. Fluid fuel reactors. Yeah, they're futuristic sci-fi super tech, and they're real, and their potential is cosmic. This is a radically advanced approach to nuclear energy compared to our present technology. From molten